Hi everyone, I'm Natalia. Welcome to my channel. Today I am making a video to answer a question that so many of my viewers, so many of you tend to ask me, either on Instagram or when I make a video. A lot of you ask me, what do I use to modify my decks? A lot of you ask me what I use to age my decks. So instead of making a video, just sharing with you what I use to modify an edge, which I will do, but I also wanted to do a video to share with you two main reasons why I tend to modify decks. And if you know me, I modify decks all of the time. I have no problem trimming, aging, messing with the deck whatsoever. At this point, I'm crowning myself queen of deck modification. Yes, I'm crowning myself queen of modifying. I'm sure there's a lot of us queens out there. I am proudly wear the title given how freely and comfortable I am at modifying decks. So I wanted to make a video to talk about it, share with you some of my favorite deck modifications I have done. In case if you do have this deck, so you get to see how wonderful they look when they're modified. Like I said, share with you two main reasons why I tend to modify. And a lot of people, when they want to modify their decks, they express to me fear. That they're afraid to mess with the decks, they're afraid to make a mistake, they're afraid they won't cut it straight. So I wanted to give you some of my personal tips in case if that might be instrumental and helpful for you to start modifying your decks and one day crown yourself queen of modifying. So many of you know, and this is where a lot of people ask me about this. 90% of the time I make a video, I hold this baby. This is my soul deck. This is Zo's deck. I hold it when I talk, when I share things. I flaunt it. I do a whole complete QVC commercial of Zo's deck on this channel every time I make a video. And a lot of you ask me first, what edition is this? Because you see that the colors are all fucked up. This is the first edition that comes in a box like this with light blue borders. You don't need first edition to work with this deck. You can get a US Games large edition on Amazon. And when you trim the borders, you will get exactly the same size. So why did I start modifying decks? And how did I get into deck modification? For me, this is a tool. This is a very important tool that I use daily, sometimes multiple times a day. For me, this has to be functional. Functionality of a deck, for me, falls into, sorry, I want to make sure that you guys can hear me, so I'm moving microphone closer. Modification for me comes into two reasoning why I would ever modify a deck. One, it needs to be able to be functional. What do I mean by functional? A functional deck to me is not just a deck that reads well, but a deck that I can handle. Now, I have large hands. I can handle a lot of large decks. I can handle a regional Zos deck. This is another copy of first edition I bought recently because I got lucky with ridiculously inexpensive price for this edition. So when it comes the first edition, it comes with this big blue borders, and it's a beautiful matte cardstock. And then when you trim it, you see what a difference it makes? It essentially frees up all the painting inside. I had this deck in this size for a while. While I didn't necessarily had a problem doing this, nor, you see what I mean when I say I have large hands? Because a lot of people actually can't do it with those stack, because I riffle shuffle. I'm a big riffle shuffler. I can also do this with my large hands. I was nonetheless annoyed because it was still cumbersome for me personally. It was too big, too large, too cumbersome. And when I do spreads and I lay it out, it would take up a lot of space. And for that reason, one day I just decided to go ahead and free up this deck. And oh my God, when I did that, I have never looked back. Those of you who do have, I think I just messed up one of the cards by putting it in, but it's okay. Chances are this one going to get trimmed too. Those of you who actually have done this to those know what difference it makes. It makes tremendous difference, in my opinion. So once I did that, unbelievable. There's something about this particular size that ends up being smaller than a standard Rider-Waite-Smith size. Let's see if I have. Okay, I think like this would be a standard Rider-Waite-Smith size. It's about the same length, actually. I never realized that, but it's a little bit fatter. So there's something about the size. And then when I trim my decks, if you know me, you know that I adore leaving the corners square, leaving them sharp like this. Primarily because it takes me back to Marseille, and I love how Marseille are the square wood blocks. I never liked rounded corners. So for that reason, from now on, if I ever trim a deck, and with the exception of one deck I have here, I always leave them square. So this is one of the reasons why I would modify a deck. Functionality. If a deck comes with a border that just magnifies its size unnecessarily so, and a border doesn't add anything to it, I will trim it. I have a ton of decks I have never trimmed that do have a border because there are decks. For example, Circle of Doors is also a large size deck, but it is more functional for me to use and shuffle. And the border I actually feel like belongs to this deck. So it never occurred to me even to trim it, although I think if I were to trim it and get rid of all the keywords, this would be also fantastic paintings. Now I'm thinking. So functionality is number one. I will trim for functional reasons. The second reason why I would ever trim a deck is for aesthetic reasons. To me, decks are also things of beauty, things of art. I like things that are beautiful. I like to look at beautiful things. I have my own aesthetic. I have my own idea of what's beautiful and appealing to me. So when I look at decks that come with borders, I intuitively feel within my realm of aesthetic whether I will prefer the deck better without the borders, whether it's going to look more beautiful, like those, for example, without the borders. So the second reason why I would just chop out borders, and I have some decks that when you chop off the borders, they become even more smaller decks. But aesthetically, I think they become more beautiful and more nuanced. I will mention a third reason why I love modifying my decks. When I modify a deck, I immediately personalize it. There's something about modifying a deck that immediately makes it your own. It could be the energy you're putting into it. It could be the time you're putting to spend with it. It could be because I have decks that I modified early on and I didn't get perfectly right. And they're endearing to me because it reminds me of the time when I started modifying decks. There's this exchange that goes on and history that ends up being embedded when you do modify a deck. I also love modifying decks that, and this is me, I'm a rebel, I am an outlier. I like to do things that most people will never do. So for that reason, I like the shock factor, right? So being a rebel, I like to modify first editions, rare editions, things that nobody would ever think about taking scissors to because they would want to preserve it the way it is. I personally like to do it. This is very much in alignment with my personality, not so much for really not so much for shock factor for other people, but for myself, because I just enjoy making myself more of an outsider, if you will. So those are the reasons why I love modifying decks. Now, let me share with you what I use to modify decks and edge them, and then I'll share with you my modifying jobs that I've done and share with you tips if you're scared and afraid to modify decks. To modify, I don't use scissors because it takes longer with scissors. I'm not that precise. I can't do a straight line with scissors, so I'm not a scissors person. If you are, that might be work for you. I use this. It's called the paper trimmer. You can get it on Amazon. This one, I don't even know if they make this particular model anymore. It belongs to my husband. This is probably like 100 years old because everything that belongs to my husband, I was going to say everything that belongs to my 100-year-old husband, although my honey bunny, I call him Fossil because he's much older than I am, with much of endearment. But this is basically, you put a piece of paper here, you slam it down where you want to cut it, and then you bring the blade, there's a blade here down, and it trims a duck. This is my favorite tool to use because it's fast, it's efficient, and you get a straight line. So I use a paper trimmer. There's a ton of different models on Amazon. To age the ducks over the course of aging, I like two things. Ideally, I like a Sharpie because it dries so fast. Lately, I've been hating using Sharpie because the ducks that I etched with Sharpie, like this one, it's for some reason, depending on the quality of the paper that you're aging, it won't fully sink in and dry. And so when I riffle shuffle, my thumbs will end up having color on it. So it's been a little bit of a pet peeve and annoyance. So I have love-hate relationship with Sharpie. It really depends on the duck. But ideally, I am one of those people, I want it fast, quickly. I don't want to wait for it to dry. My second favorite thing to edge ducks with, and I edged this one with it, it's called Tim Holtz, and I will put the name of it below, Distress Ink. They're kind of like ink pads. Somebody told me that she gets really, somebody who follows me on Instagram, she struggles with migraines, very sensitive to scents. And so Sharpie one time gave her real bad migraine. And she was asking what I used to, if you happen to be watching, I can detect any smell. It doesn't seem like it smells. If it does, it's probably very subtle. Where Sharpie definitely has a scent to it. But I've been loving this ones because depending on a paper, the way the sauce is, it's very like a matte cardstock. It loved being edged by Distress Ink. And you can buy them in different colors. I have a variety of colors. I just have them lying around. And then when I run out, I just end up buying them. Or you can actually also find them at Target or Michael's. So I love this one because it dries relatively fast, couple of hours. You gotta let it lie around, but once it dries, it does not smear off on your hands whatsoever, and I love that about it. So those are the two things I use to age it. I keep it pretty simple. I don't like to overcomplicate things, and I just really go for it. The first time I trimmed the duck, I remember it, to be honest, it was a wacky job. I was just learning. I didn't get it right. My advice for those of you who are doing it for the first time, let me get the advice out of the way. And if you are terrified and really scared to do it, but you really want to do it, maybe you have a duck that you were going to dispose of. Practice on that. Practice on trimming just paper. Imagine a paper is a duck. Draw an outline of a duck and practice trimming on paper. A lot of people express to me being terrified of messing the duck, that like perfectionism comes out in some of us, right? Where we're so afraid we're going to mess it up. I myself don't struggle with that. I just go for things. I just do things. I have learned in my life early on a lesson that I aspire to this day. Is there something I really, really desire and want, but feel afraid? That's a huge, huge green light to go forward for it. So if there's a duck I really want to trim, but I'm afraid I'm going to mess it up, I do it. There were so many things I really desired to do and I was afraid to do, and I didn't. And I always learned something from the experience. I was afraid to start YouTube channel, and I went and I did it because I wanted to. I was afraid to wear red lipstick many years ago for the first time. I did it because I wanted to, and here I am. It's my signature color. The first time I decided to cut my bangs, I was afraid whether it's going to look good on me. Here I am, it's my signature haircut. So I have learned to always lean and move forward, the magical combination of desire and fear. And I really, really encourage all of you, if there's something you desire and really want, but feel afraid, to give it a shot. Because desire, what we want, always going to be accompanied by fear. It has to. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth wanting. There has to be that element of something you move past. Yeah, you may mess up the rack. Yes, you may cut the corner off wrong. And perhaps that's exactly what you're going to need to do to make the deck yours, to make it personalized to you, or maybe to break through that perfectionistic streak. So that would be my advice. Play around, try it. I think there's a lot that can be read into a person that is so afraid they're going to mess up the deck. And I don't want to do that because each one of us is so different. I will leave it to all of you to kind of explore what makes you so hesitant to do something you really want to do. But my advice, if there's fear and desire married together, to go for it. So let me share with you some of the decks I have modified that I think look so much better. Wisdom of the Oracle by Colin Baron Reed. I adore this one being modified. You will see a pattern with the exception of one of the decks. Look how gorgeous it looks, etched in red Sharpie. See, on this is like this very glossy plastic cardstock. And on a glossy plastic cardstock, it doesn't, maybe because I did it so many years ago, it really dried out. It doesn't rub off, but it looks gorgeous. With the reds, again, square, leaving the edges. Look at that. I think that this looks amazing trimmed, amazing. I don't use this deck enough. I probably should make just my red lipstick. Another one that I modified that I also adore, also by Colin Baron Reed, is Enchanted Map. I know that this deck is now in it's this new edition that comes borderless, I believe, and matte. I actually went out and looked and found on eBay an edition that was the old one, the same glossy cardstock, because I wanted the specs. B, I knew I wanted to edge it green, and I knew how amazing it would look. And look at that, so much better. So if you have the stack, maybe give it a shot to trim it. So these are some of my favorites. One of my absolute favorite that I trimmed, that, sometimes this is what happens. It happens when I trim the dog, two things happen. One, you trim the first card and immediately you see how much better it is. And you gasp because it's so beautiful. Or two, you trim the first card and you're like, yeah, maybe it wasn't such a good idea, but I already started. So you keep going. And then after, like, it's almost as if you need more than one card to see how it all plays out. And then you fall in love with it. There's only one deck that I modified that I'm still questioning whether that was the right thing to do. And I'm fine keeping the deck the way it is because, again, they become endearments. But other than that, everything I loved. This one, when I modified this one, the minute I cut the first card, it was like, hallelujah, it looked gorgeous. Gorgeous. And I know that one of you, a friend of mine, actually also modified hers and loves how it looks. This is the one that I also etched using Tim Holtz ink paint. Look how pretty that is. This is the one where I had no choice but to round the corners because of the way I forgot how original the cards look, but on the originals, it just was not possible to make it square and to make it work. And I didn't mind turning the corners because this deck has such tiny little corners. But oh my goodness, when you break it apart from the frame, it just, this one particularly becomes, this is one of my, I have three I have 4 decks here, including, well, my thoughts will make it 5 decks, which modification job I adore. So those, I love it. This one, I love this modification job. This just makes the deck adorable. So if you haven't modified Woodland Wardens, I really encourage you to do it. I think you're gonna love it. Another deck that I modified recently, and I love, and what prompted me to make this video, because a lot of you were asking me on Instagram again, what do I use, how did I do it, was the latest Guardian of the Night Tarot. Oops, this tarot deck is really, the cardstock is really thick. This tarot deck, and I etched it in Tim Holtz vintage photo. Look at this. This tarot deck, I will probably do in-depth video because it is very, very clever. I recently connected with somebody on Instagram, and we started talking, and she said this is one of the 3 decks she loves, absolutely loves. And she is a person that I just instantly felt like there was a lot of things that we would resonate on. We have a lot of similarities. I love her aesthetic. It's very different from me, but I love it. So you know how when you meet people and you immediately like how they show up in the world, chances are you're going to like either some of the books they like to read, or chances are you're going to love the decks they use. At least for me, that's the case. If I find somebody I really enjoy watching or listening, or I like their aesthetic, chances are I'm going to like something about what they like too, because there's that resonance of frequency. Look how gorgeous this looks, trimmed. Unbelievable, unbelievable. And this cardstock, loved the Tim Holtz stain. It just etched instantaneously. Gorgeous. So this is Guardian of the Night. This came with a gray border around. I trimmed it all around and left here. I did not touch. The gray border made this deck more square shaped, made it very uncomfortable to do this. And now it's a game changer, absolutely game changer. It's the same size as my thoughts. If you have Guardian of the Night, I don't think you're going to regret it. This is another one of those trimming jobs that the minute I trimmed the first card, I guess because it was so beautiful, I could instantly see that this was the deck that needed to be trimmed. This is another one that also instantly I knew needed to be trimmed. This is an example of a deck that when you trim the borders, this is an example of a deck that was already functional to work with, and then when you trim the borders, it just makes it even smaller, because now you reduce it to even smaller size, which adds to its cuteness. A lot of you know what it is. Etched in red Sharpie, Nicoletta Ciccoli, and for this one I added names on the bottom, because otherwise you will just, for a lot of them, I will not know what I'm looking at. This is adorable. I keep it in this bag with a tooth that Melissa Lucia sent me a long time ago, because I associate this deck with a tooth in the sense of when it bites, she really bites with information. So this was another trimming job that I adored. Final trimming job that I adored, that a lot of you actually already have done, is Tarot Vampires. I know some people that have 2 copies of this deck, a trimmed and untrimmed version. I think it looks amazing trimmed, etched it in red. And I also kept, as you can see, I keep those corners sharp, square. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Okay, so I only have one more to show you. One deck that I trimmed. And by the way, I have some more decks that I trimmed, but I don't really trim. I was surprised. I don't trim that many decks. I thought that I was I'm now decrowning my modifier queen. Now I'm decrowning myself after crowning myself being such a queen of modifying. I do modify, but I realize that I still have a ton of decks I don't modify. Again, for me, it's more about functionality and aesthetics. In some decks, they just hit it out of the park with having a borders. They look beautiful. They don't really need to be modified. This is the only one that I modified. That to this day, I'm wondering, I don't know. I don't know. You guys tell me. This is the Tantric or Sacred Dakini Oracle, the Kichi one. Yeah, I took off all of the titles. I have to use the booklet to figure out what's what. I like it without the borders, and then sometimes I don't. I go back and forth, back and forth. But it's endearing to me now because I adore this deck. As many of you know, I love this deck. It is a phenomenal oracle. So you tell me, what do you think about this one being modified? I don't know. This is the only modification job I've done where I'm scratching my head thinking, not sure, not sure. But other than that, I love modifying decks. I have like Papi Palin deck I modified. I have two of the Goddess Oracles I modified too that I haven't shown here. I just love doing it because you just cannot, I mean, in my opinion, you cannot deny what happens to the deck, especially to this one. I can't stop looking at it. It looks so gorgeous modified, so perfect, so fantastic being edged. Just lovely. So share below what have been your favorite modification jobs. Are you terrified to modify your decks? What do you think is holding you back? Why do you think you're scared to modify your decks? Somebody recently messaged me on Instagram and said that I encouraged them to modify their vintage Zos deck, and the minute they did it, they just noticed how beautiful it is, how much green Lady Fair Hairs put into it. They also edged the edges emerald green, which I think is a spectacular idea and such a beautiful color to add depth to the deck. So share below which decks do you modify? Are you a modifier? Do you feel like, I remember many years ago, Patrick had a YouTube channel, Patrick Fonagy, and he was not into modifying. And the analogy he used is, it's like I'm taking your child to a hairdresser and getting your child a haircut. Why would I mess with something you wanted for your child? And, to extent I agree with that analogy, but not fully, because sadly, what I have learned is that the reality is that a lot of decks were created by creators like Marie White. Marie Alter is a great example. She did not intend for borders to be used. Once it goes to publisher, the publisher may add things to it. Even if it didn't go to publisher and you're buying it as indie from the creator, I think that any creator, in my opinion, I would hope that a creator would be happy that you modified it and actually using their creation versus having a deck that is unmodified because you're afraid to modify it and struggle to use it. So it's sitting there without being used. That's just my kind of take on that. So comment below, let me know what you think, what your thoughts are on modifying decks. Hopefully you found this video helpful. And I wish you all of the fun as you trim your decks. Bye.